Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gritty Hour. I have a very special guest today, Henry Woodman, who is not the author, but the son of the author of The Reincarnation of Marie. Welcome to the Gritty Hour.
Thank you, Tom. Man, it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So, tell us a little. Well, you are the proponent of this book, and
Yeah.
we'll get to why you're not the actual author of the book. But let's talk a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and how you got to this point, Henry.
Wow, listen, at 64, there's a lot to talk about, but I'll try to summarize it real quick and
Well,
we'll
cut out
start.
the first 25 years. We don't care.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, actually, early into college, I started sort of a hedonistic and opportunistic entrepreneurial run. Eventually, I started producing travel films, and from that, I was in Chile and Latin America. It went from a dictatorship to a democracy, and new television stations opened up, and thus I thought, wow, they need content. So I ripped off an idea from a show in the US. Chile had a younger demographic, so it was skewed towards the younger demographic. And I pitched it to a new television network in Chile. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I've got a show on the air in Chile.
Nice.
While I'm in Chile, they introduced me to this new nonlinear editing, which I thought was the coolest thing ever because you have digital components. And then somebody gives me a CD-ROM with 360 tours, which I thought was amazing. And now instead of traveling with a crew of 5 and 17 people, I can literally go with one camera and shoot 360s and start a company. Whew. So I did that. Couple of years into that, hotels and resorts and the destination said, this is great, but how do we get these virtual tours on this new World Wide Web thingy? This is
Hmm.
the mid to late 90s, right?
Okay.
And I say, give them a CD-ROM. And they say, yeah, they don't know what to do with it. So we need to figure this out. And thus I pivoted to my company called Ice Portal, which is Internet Content Exchange, built that and recently sold it. So if you go to any travel website today and you book a hotel, you probably see the pictures of that hotel on that website. Those would have come from Ice Portal, my previous company.
Nice.
So we help size, tag, categorize, and send the images to every travel site on the planet.
Do you get a
And
slice
so,
of that?
no, I didn't get a slice of the sale, but I got
No.
every single hotel would have to pay to get distributed. So it was a SaaS model, meaning software as a service. And we would go with the big companies, the Hiltons and the Wyndhams, that had, 9 and 7,000 hotels each. And so we would just get a paycheck from them and the hotels would pay the corporate office. So it was a wonderful business.
Sounds good. What was the premise of the show in Chile? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the name of the show was Machos, and the premise was we would get these people that didn't know each other set up on blind dates. Then the writers would ask them about the date. Then on the show, they'd say, listen, your date said this about you. Which one of these girls said that? Or which one of these guys said that, right?
Okay.
And then if they picked it right, they would win another date and some, dinner and money, cash prizes. So it was a dating game show.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not going to mention the show that comes to mind in America, but
Yeah, well, it was called Machos,
hmm.
which was a ripoff of a show here. Well, this was decades ago called Studs.
Oh, okay. That's not even the one I had in mind. Okay, very
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I'm curious how you, what is the background of the book, The Reincarnation of Marie?
So the background is, when I graduated college and I moved to Los Angeles, I had these ideals of dreams of, producing and directing movies.
Right.
And while I'm in Los Angeles, my father, who was a travel and fiction, nonfiction writer, he wrote a historical fiction romance as a tribute to a friend, right? He didn't plan on publishing it. It's in his garage. My sister is helping him move. She asks him what this manuscript is. He explains it. She goes, wow, dad, love story sounds interesting. Let me read it. She reads it, loves it, calls me. I'm in LA. She goes, this would make a great movie. Daddy wrote a love story. And I'm like, Dad, that's really? She sends it to me. I could not put it down. I was in tears. Call my dad. I said, Dad, this is amazing. Can I buy the rights? I don't have a lot of money, but I'll give you a buck, right? Make it legal. And then I'm thinking to myself, wow, how nepotistic of me thinking my dad wrote a great love story, right? Let me give it to
Right.
a friend of mine. So there's a friend of mine, he's producing a movie, and I call him up and I say, listen, you got to read this. Let me know what you think. He says, Henry, I'm in the middle of a movie. Give me some time. So I say, you got all the time you need. 3 days later, he called me up. He says, I couldn't put it down. I love it. We are meant to do this. So
Wow.
he went a different direction after producing his movie. I went to Chile and did the game show. So I said, one of these days, and then of course I started a tech company. I go, one of these days, we're going to get back to this thing and create now, instead of a movie, a series. So the premise of the book, it's called The Reincarnation of Marie, as you
Right.
mentioned. And it's about a guy who finds his soulmate. The only problem is she had died 70 years earlier.
Right.
So it's based on a woman called Marie Bashkirtseff. And Marie existed in the late 1800s. And between 14 and 24, she wrote a very intimate journal. And she died at 24 of tuberculosis. 2 years after her death, the journal was published and it became an international bestseller. And 70 years later, the guy picks up the book and he's fascinated with the woman who wrote it. And she writes that, I will find you in time. He believes that she wrote it for him.
Hmm.
And soon he dilutes himself and thinks, wait, holy crap, I've fallen in love with a dead woman. This is crazy. And eventually he finds her reincarnation. That's sort of the simplistic premise of the story. Guy falls in love with a woman from her writing. He thinks it's her soulmate. He thinks she is writing to him. He finds her in the future. She speaks like her. She dresses like her. She has the same taste like her. She answers like her. He's convinced it's her reincarnation. Now, the next step beyond the book is a TV series which does a much deeper dive in the intertwined lives of Marie in her late 1800s and the current lives of our protagonist and how they intertwine, whether soulmates meet in every life or they are ships passing in the night, whether there's karma that they need to deal with or there's sins of the father, or it's maybe a hallucination or a metaverse. Who knows? But
Wow.
there's a lot of spooky things going on.
Well, that's what prompted me to invite you on the show. The premise was not only unique, but when you think about how much time passed between the time she lived and the time that this fella came across her story, and you getting busy with your own career, how much time between the time your pop wrote the book and the time you're just getting to it, it's
Yeah,
almost like a duality there that I found extremely interesting, you know?
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wrote it over 40 years ago,
Yeah, well,
and
that's what
now,
I mean. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you mind if I share? You have a page which I'll show in the which I'll share in the show notes, I should say, called Marie. What was it?
MarieTheStory.com.
Right. I just want to show that page if you don't mind while we're
Not
talking.
at all.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I don't know if you can see it on your end there.
There it is.
So this is
So
the
this
book cover.
website uses cookies.
Yeah, let's accept that. All right. The reincarnation. Who did the graphics for it?
So we had a publisher put together the cover art,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the publishing. So we did the book with that. It
Mm-hmm.
was, like I said, written by my father. And so then I asked the publisher, so I need to do this in audio form because I'm kind of lazy and I listen to books, right? I want to do the same. Do
Mm-hmm.
I have to find a voiceover talent? She says, well, why don't you do it? You have a pretty good voice. I'm like, oh, I don't want to sit there for a couple of days reading a book and making. She says, no, 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 you're good. Come on, it's okay.
You do have a
So
good radio voice. Yeah.
I got a face for radio too. You
I
get
got a
that.
face for radio. You got a voice for radio. But go ahead. I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
Yeah.
So no, 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 no. So of course now the book is written by my father. The voiceover is me, and there are music transitions by piano with Chopin because Marie loved Chopin.
Mm-hmm.
And those are done by my nephew, his grandson. So there's three Woodmans that have sort of a putting together of the audio book, which is kind of amazing. But
That
the
is
book
amazing.
already,
Yeah.
it's only been out like a month and it's starting to do very well because everybody that I convinced to read it say, yeah, yeah, I'm into leadership or business books. And I read this and man, this was really good.
Yeah.
Wow. And even my mentor, I gave it to him and he said I had to put it down. I was so emotional, I was in tears. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
there's
I'm
my dad
assuming
in the middle.
I'm assuming that Marie lived in Paris, or is that, I'm just going
Yes.
by the graphic on the book cover. Yeah.
Marie lived in Paris. Our
Uh-huh.
protagonist was in Paris, and he ends up finding her reincarnation in Paris.
Wow.
And yeah, there's a big Paris connection there.
Is there a ghost element to this or no?
Well, the fact that it's reincarnation, there is that paranormal spin
Okay.
on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So,
kind of
so the book
the
is out, and I'm going to share the Amazon page. I just want people to see how easy it is to buy this. The audio version's on Amazon too, or is that out yet?
yeah, yeah. If you go up to the where to buy it, there's also more options. And on the more options, it'll show Audible as well. But even if you click
Okay.
on Amazon, Amazon also has the link to Audible.
Yeah, might as well
And
do that now. Yeah. Because I saw the
so
reviews and everybody loves the book. Everyone that
yeah,
made a review, anyway. Even
yeah, yeah.
there was a couple of them that were overseas. I guess the European audience would like it as well.
Yeah,
Even
it's funny because I have some friends in the UK and some friends in Australia, and I convinced them to read it, and they've passed it to I even have I recently did physical therapy for my shoulder. I had operations, and I was telling the physical therapist, and he buys a book for his mother for her birthday, and I'm like, seriously, really? He goes, yeah, she loved it, and I asked her for it. He said. And she says, "No, I'm going to give it to grandma." Right? I'm like, "Oh my God, that's great." So that's a good story when I hear things like that.
really, absolutely. Well, the reviews are phenomenal. The sales, as you said, are doing pretty brisk,
Yeah,
and a good story will sell. That's the way it is, you know. But if you
it's a
do go
unique
to,
story. Yeah,
as
it's got the historical fiction, so there's facts of reality in there,
uh-huh,
and there's also the sort of paranormal romance thing, which is like, wow, does reincarnation exist and do soulmates exist? Is that possible?
or is love
Because we all
timeless?
have
Yeah,
these eerie questions in our mind. Is this all there is, or
yeah,
is there more to it? You
yeah.
know?
Did you ever talk to your father about this after reading it? He was still alive
Oh yeah,
when he
absolutely. Oh,
and
absolutely.
did he give you any insight as to what he was trying to shoot for?
Well, he claims, and it's also in the book, he claims that the story was provided to him by an army friend, right?
Okay,
And he said that the guy, after finding the reincarnation, had to tell this story to somebody because he didn't want to die without anybody knowing this amazing story. So he
hmm,
tells my dad, right? Now, I don't know if that's true, that it was my dad telling the story about him falling in love with this fictitious woman and
ah,
finding the
okay,
reincarnation. So I don't know if it's him telling the story about himself or him telling the story that about another woman, but I mean about another friend.
right. So the protagonist is up in the air as to who it is historically.
Exactly.
Okay, that's probably the ambiguity. Is that the right word?
Yep.
Is probably a good
Epic.
thing, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to show people that are watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us, we're sharing the Amazon page for the book. Um, like the first review I see on the difficult to put down, so I didn't.
Right.
It's
And
it's
it's great too because it's a very short and passionate read. I mean, you can read it in 2 or 3 hours, depending on the speed with which you read. It's not a long book.
uh
And when I first read it as a 23 or 24-year-old, I literally, it was late at night when I started, and I couldn't put it down. I had to
yeah.
stay up to finish it. And once I got into the concept of what was happening, I was like, I need to know what's coming, right?
That's a page turner.
Yeah,
So I'm going back to the original Marie the Story. Excuse me. Yeah, MarieTheStory.com. Because there is some development uh, schemes on the bottom here. You have obviously the book summary that we just discussed, and a little bit about your pop, right? That's your pop there.
that's correct.
Yeah. And what I'd like to talk to you about, Henry, is the TV series in development. Tell us a little bit about what's that about. Where are you on that development?
Yeah. So I'll start with the end. We're fairly early into this. So what
Mhm.
happened was when I first read it, and I thought, wow, it would make a great movie, and I wanted to get into the movie business. That never happened, right? But I knew it stayed in my back pocket all the time. And I figured when I sell the tech company and I have the freedom to close that chapter, I will first publish the book, right? And after publishing the book, I will use that as the springboard to go and develop the series. So the
Right.
series now is essentially in the what's called a pitch deck area, where we put together the elements of the series. It's going to be a limited series, which essentially, as I mentioned, does a much deeper dive into the past lives and the current lives and how they're intertwined, right?
Mm,
And with the pitch deck, we go to various what they call showrunners or producers. And we say, listen, you've done similar type genres. This is something I think you might like and you would do well with. If they like it, then we work with them to help attach others like the director and the cast, which then brings us to the budget. Once all of those elements are put together, we then go to a streamer, for example, and we say, here's the package all wrapped up in a bow. And they either say yes or no, and then they give you the budget, or you essentially negotiate from that point. But
understood.
those are the people who have, they've been the road, the showrunners. They've had the experience. I am in. I am very cognizant that I have no interest in producing stuff, but I'll bring it in as an executive producer as I own the material.
Right. Is that, do you have a streamer in mind?
You know, I do, but as I talk to different people, there are different thoughts that come in. First of all, I love Apple because they make great quality product,
Hmm.
but Netflix seems to be more ubiquitous and have greater stretch of content for these niche audiences. So I think that depending on the showrunner, it would probably end up like on an Amazon or a Netflix, but
Yeah.
it would also go to, because of the content, there's a variety of places that it could go to.
Hmm. Do you have any characters in mind for like above that paragraph that we're looking at, the TV series? You have the protagonist and Marie, I guess that is. Do you have
Yeah, I'd love,
anybody? Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just curious if you have someone in mind for those two roles.
Well, you know what it is? I have, IMDb, the database for movies. I have a list of potential cast and characters in the book. I don't want to mention anyone because I don't want to pigeonhole what we're doing, but
Correct.
that list essentially goes to the showrunner and the director because they too will say, no, 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 we've worked with them, or we would rather work with them and let them make those decisions. But we have a guide that we say, I think these people would do well because I've seen them somewhere else and they have that look or they act well, and we think they'd be perfect for this or that role.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated about the mechanics of what goes into making a short series that you would see on Netflix. There's a lot of work that goes into those things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's a definite. And listen, I gotta say, even now, as in the movie industry and the television industry, it's very cyclical. They were spending money like drunken sailors buying content a few years ago,
Yeah.
and now everything's cut back since the writer's strike as well. And
Right.
they realize that they don't need as much as they once thought they did. The arms race is kind of, settling down a bit, and they can produce stuff foreign for cheaper or buy foreign stuff and dub it for cheaper.
Hmm.
And most importantly, there are tons of talented people, producing, directing, acting out there that are really good. And, if they get a show and then you go, wow, they're really good. And you're like, wow, they had that show 2 years ago. Now they're looking for another show because they need to make the money again. It's
Sure.
tough to make a living that way.
It's a rough business in that sense. It was kind of a boom time during the shutdown period, but they are contracting.
Yeah.
They are streamlining, but not contracting. So they're still out there.
It's all
Yeah.
about efficiency.
Yeah, and new content is what drives their industry anyway. So it sounds like
Exactly.
it might be a good marriage for you and whoever they
Yeah.
may end up being. But
Yeah.
it's really good. I always struck me. Of course, I'm going to buy the book and read it because I don't want to put it down either, and I haven't even read it yet. And but it always struck me as like a Sterling. What is it? Rod Serling, like a Twilight Zone type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the working title right now is called Slippin'.
I saw
which
that.
is
Yeah.
sort of a slipping through time,
Hmm.
right? Now, the reality is if the quantum field exists and there are different metaverses, or if there is a possibility of going through time with, time travel or reincarnation or soulmates, then how do you get there? And is it possible? And, they have so many studies that talk about your DNA remembering things like, as a Holocaust survivor, people have these traumas from past, ancestors.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that happen? Right.
Yeah.
And do all these stories about karma and sins of the father and reincarnation, where do they appear? I mean, somebody had to have some sort of feeling or knowledge in the past to come up with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we explore those concepts.
And some of them are I just yesterday, in fact, I saw a video on YouTube of a young kid that was telling his parents that he was in the World Trade Center on 9/11. This is, the kid's like 5 years old. So, a kid ain't going to lie about something like that. How the hell would they even know about something like that? You know?
And everywhere you turn, there are stories like that.
Yeah, there was another kid that was telling his parents that he was in a bomber in World War II that got shot down. You know,
Yep.
so it makes you really think. Like if an adult said that to you, you might pass it off, but a kid won't lie about that. They wouldn't even know about it to lie
Yeah.
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's true.
and do you feel like this when the TV show gets developed? Because now I'm all excited here, Henry. When the TV show
Glad
gets
you're excited.
when the TV show gets developed, do you feel like you're going to be exploring that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if I had the answers, it'd be a completely different story. I'd be a very rich man. But
Yeah.
I think all of us as humans innately ask the questions, okay, what is this all about?
Hmm.
Right? Is there more than this? And if so, what is it?
Right.
Do we reincarnate? Do we teleport? Is there such a thing as time travel? I mean, there's weird things in the universe that we have no clue about with quarks or wormholes and stuff like that. I mean, does this play into it? And, we are a teeny tiny speck on a grain of sand that's in an ocean of sand in
Yeah.
this massive universe that we're in. So we can't be so narcissistic to think this is all there is,
Right.
but what else is there? You
Right.
know?
And unfortunately, the catch-22 to that is no one survives the answer. No one alive has the answer. You know.
Exactly. Like I
Yeah.
say, you'll know when you die, and you're like, well, it's too late then. Then I can't share it with anybody.
Have you any compulsion to write yourself a book?
Not at all.
No.
You know, my brother's a great writer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I am a good writer. I mean, I write,
Uh-huh.
obviously, but I read other people's writings and I'm always impressed. And the guy who's writing the pilot for Slippin', I read it and I'm like, man, that's really good.
Mm.
It's very, very good. I mean, he essentially flips around in different times and places, and it's like he's laying out pieces to this massive puzzle that slowly, I mean, you see the entire puzzle at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you see little things that are coming together and you're like, what the? And then at the end, all of these things make sense and the pieces of the puzzle start to come together and you're like, oh, that was the guy who did this, who then paid the karma to, oh yeah, right? And those are the types of things that I find very impressive and intriguing.
Sure. And he's staying true to the original book or the premise behind the book, or
Well, he's going far, far deeper. So the book essentially is about Marie Barstreseff. We're doing the exact same thing. The book is about a French army soldier in the 50s. We're doing it with a US veteran soldier in the 70s because we're tying in the Vietnam War.
I see.
Uh, and we're also doing a much deeper dive onto the people that Marie, the original Marie, had in her previous life, because she had a pen pal relationship with another famous writer called Guy Maupassant. And so we explore those details, and we now know who Maupassant's reincarnated future person is,
Mm-hmm.
and how all of those people are essentially intertwined into the current day lives. Like, who was my mother in a past life and stuff like that. So it's
Mm,
some really trippy stuff. You know how they sometimes say you choose your parents and you
yeah,
choose your destiny and moving forward.
right.
We kind of why.
It's a really cool premise. I have to say, I'm really excited about it. I know people that are into time travel would certainly love this kind of TV series if it when we get to that point. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's two of them it reminds me of. One, there is a recent series called Outlander, which was a somewhat historical fiction and paranormal romance where she would touch a tree and she would be teleported back in time to
Hmm.
meet her soulmate, if you will. And then another movie that was really old that has always stuck with me. It's called Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeves. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it's a story about a guy who finds a way to time travel and he finally finds this woman and at the very end he pulls out a penny and the penny is the current date instead of the old date and he's lost in that time and he never gets to go back or something. It's like very cool.
Hmm. Well, you fulfilled your promise to yourself, I guess, to get this book out, to get it published. But now that you're taking the next step of the TV series development, do you feel like your own history and background helps when you're in this process of the TV series development? Because
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
were involved, obviously, in that industry.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. First of all, I'm lucky as hell to have been able to build and sell a tech company to do what I'm doing now. But, I started out in television and film production, and I am aware of the challenges putting stuff together
Hmm.
and the labor of love in many cases in putting a series together. So, um, it's a different world than when I first got to Los Angeles over 40 years ago,
Hmm.
obviously, but I think there's more opportunity now because there's many niche audiences that you can play to and many more channels or distributors, if you will, that stream content that will appeal to those audiences.
Right. And you never know where technology is going. You're in California?
No, I'm in Florida.
Oh, you're in
I live
Florida. Okay.
Yeah, I live in Hollywood, Florida, and I have to
Ah,
tell people I live in Miami because usually if I say Hollywood, I don't even finish the word Florida when they already have me in California when I
yeah,
say,
I already had you in California. But
see,
that just to show you that you and I'm in New York, you're in Florida. We're talking like it's an instantaneous conversation here, and
there you go.
it's mind-boggling how the technology is flying.
I love it. I
You're younger than
absolutely,
me by 30 years, right? I'm 114, so I would never have expected to be sitting here talking to a guy who published a book in Florida over a computer.
yeah. And
So
and that's see the typewriter that my dad has there.
yeah,
He literally, when I first read the manuscript, obviously this is 40 some odd years ago, there were no computers and word processors and printers like that. He had written a typewritten manuscript on a piece of paper, and my sister sent me that manuscript. So
maybe on that
before
typewriter.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Before I published it, I literally transcribed it from that piece of paper to a Word document. And
Mm.
obviously, I probably made a ton of mistakes, so the publisher had to go clean it up.
That's all right. But obviously, he was a good writer. He wrote a book that people can't put down. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, he was a good writer. He wrote a lot of travel books.
the other day when I was visiting this site, for some reason, it looks like he's sitting on a dock, but I'm probably wrong. But just to satisfy me, where do you think he's sitting there?
He's probably on a boat.
That's what I
Um,
thought. Yeah, yeah,
he was a travel writer, so he's probably sitting on I don't know, some boat in the Caribbean, I'm guessing, with the white clothes and stuff.
right. Well, everything is very cool about this. I can't wait to read the book. I can't wait to hear about this coming out on the internet somewhere, whether it be Netflix or Prime or somewhere. So, but
No,
you
I will
still,
keep you posted.
yeah, I want to have you back on when the TV series is about to come out, so people can get a taste
Absolutely.
of this. But this thing, the book itself, which is the focal of this thing, the focal point, um, seems like it's really taken off. It's only been out about what? 6, 7 weeks.
Yeah, it's been, they said June 8th, but we really did the launch June 24th because that was my father's, the anniversary of his birthday. So I did
Ah,
it for him. But it launched like a month and a half ago.
yeah.
So yeah, just 8 weeks. And oh, look, there's an even there. You can listen to my voice with it says audio sample. So yeah, it's been a month and a half, and already we're at 77 ratings. I can see. I didn't even know that, so that's good to me. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I'm glad it's been well received, and it seems like it's shooting up in the charts there. So,
I don't
um,
even have 77 friends.
that's what I say when I look at the people that watch the YouTube channel of this thing. It's like, who the hell are these people? No offense to you, but
Yeah, no, no, you gotta be honest. Like I would tell people if somebody asked me, because I have friends who've written, business books, and they said, "Oh yeah, give it a read and a review." And I got to tell you, it's generally challenging because I don't like to, you know, pander people and beg them for reviews. But if I know somebody well enough, I'll say, "Yeah, yeah, let me know what you think, and please, if you like it, give it a review." And if you don't ever talk to me again. No, I'm
yeah. Well, I'm gonna put a review when I'm done reading because I most of the books I read are history books anyway. So this
Oh,
is
you'll love it then. You'll love
yeah,
it.
yeah. This is right up my alley. So I'm actually looking forward to it. And I will invite you right now to come back when the TV series is ready to rock, and we'll talk about that part of it. And you could tell me who the stars are, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but
I'll
I
tell
do
you,
appreciate you coming on tonight. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
no, I think you've done more than enough. I really appreciate the time, and I look forward to hearing if other of the audience reads it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and the reviews. On the website, there's ways to reach out. There's a contact form. There's also my LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff. You're always welcome to reach
Okay.
out to that.
And that's all can be found on Marie the
Yeah, go to the
Story. Yes.
yeah, if you go to the very bottom,
Okay.
you'll see the sort of social media stuff. There's what readers say. There's
Yeah.
some links and
And
stuff.
there's all your contacts right here. I think. Yes.
Yeah, there's right down at the bottom.
And
You
you
can
could
see,
just. Yep. There you go. If I
and then
put my
so
name and email in here, will I get updates on the development of the TV series?
I haven't. I should do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You're a genius,
Well,
Tom.
people want to follow the trail,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's very
But then,
interesting. Like you gave us a pretty uh, in-depth how the mechanisms behind coming out with a TV show for the layman like myself that doesn't know the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I bet people would be interested to
yeah,
follow
yeah.
that
As
along.
we
Yeah.
as we progress, I know we're thinking we'll probably produce it in the Czech Republic because there's a lot of similarities to Paris, and it's less expensive, and you can do it on the cheap because that's what everybody's looking for now, and it has that European feel.
Sure. Yeah. As the book cover implies. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, Henry, thank you so much. You're an entertaining fella. You have a interesting past and obviously a bright future ahead of you. So,
I thank you, Tom. I much appreciate the time and everybody that was here listening. I appreciate you getting this far, and I look forward to hearing your feedback on the book.
absolutely, you'll get mine. Hopefully, somebody else will that listens to us on this podcast will be, prompted to buy one himself and or herself and read it. So,
And I'm sure they'll love it. Thank
all
you.
right. Well, thank you, Henry. I appreciate you coming on today, and we'll see you further on up the road, man.